You're listening to the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox podcast, the podcast that keeps your practice sharp and your clients happy. I'm your host, immigration lawyer John Khosravi, and every week we're bringing you insights, tips, and real-world conversations with top immigration attorneys and industry leaders. Whether you're here to grow your practice, stay on top of the latest trends, or get inspired, you're in the right place. Ready? Let's go. Hello, fellow Toolboxers. Welcome to episode number 397 of the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox. Number 400 is coming up. I should have planned ahead of time to have some sort of big podcast for that day. Whoever is the interviewer I'm doing, I'm sure it's going to be big, but I think episode 100, maybe 200, I got some bigger guests. But right now I'm just chugging along and really publishing. If you notice, we're putting a lot of content out there. We're going to have our regular top 10 every Monday, record it live. You could catch it live on LinkedIn. Sometimes I've been putting it on YouTube, but if you want to catch it live, follow me on LinkedIn on my John Khosravi page, my personal page. There, that's where I put in a bunch of clips of this stuff too. There and on Instagram, definitely recommend following Instagram. I'm not an Instagram person, but if you are a person who checks Instagram, I've been told by people who do that they like it a lot. So I'll put that there. Other than that, the EB1A and E2 courses are out on our community page on Circle.so. It's a premium course, purchase is required, but it teaches you how to expand your practice, get started, and have hand-holding mentorship that goes with it. The E2 course is for if you're doing a small investor owner, less than $100,000 investment, constant processing chain of status, and analyzing how the foreign affairs manual works. The EB1A, we go through a couple of cases, break down the laws, tips, and all this kind of stuff to get you prepared to do the consultation and on. And so your confidence when you meet with someone and talk about it, you feel like you've done 100 cases and you can get through it and take it from there. They all come with office hours mentorship. So you have me to talk with. So it's going to be really good. I recommend doing that, getting your practice bigger. Frankly, why not? If you're an immigration lawyer trying to grow or a person trying to get to immigration, we also have a marriage green card course about constant processing and the like. So if you aren't already, we have a free community page for immigration, not immigration, for lawyers in general, as long as you're private bar, that kind of thing. There's a bunch of CLE stuff, white labeled advertising content, white labeled content for giving for clients, like marriage checklist, that kind of stuff. We have our AEO decisions that we analyze there too, and that's a really helpful resource if you're doing employment-based NIWs, EB1As, instead of reading thousands of EB1A decisions. Well, we haven't analyzed thousands yet, but we're going to get there. There's a bunch of content, the newest stuff that you could just quickly review and see what serves your practice, and you can take it from there. And the Toolbox magazine, we got all the articles we need for this issue. I got a proofread, set it up. Hopefully by the end of the month, they'll be out. Issue number 10. It's really good. But issue number 9 is already out. Check it out on our website, iltbox.com or immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com. Go to the page for magazine and check it out. A lot of good information. Colleagues work really hard to prepare a good system right there. Having said all that, none of the information provided here is intended as individual legal guidance. Please consult with an immigration attorney about your case, but you all know that already. Let's get the show started. Hey, Roman, how are you?
Hey, John, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
You got it. Glad to have you on the program and wanting to have more conversations with you because you guys come with a wealth of knowledge of the industry. And I was about to, we were talking a little bit before, and I was going to start asking you, how do you like podcasting? Because you've had your podcast now you've had a lot of episodes. Let me just say this. When you first started, I'm like, how is he going to have, even now, every week you have another guest. I'm like, where is he getting all these guests from that are like so niche where it's immigration tech? It's like, are they going to run out? But you don't seem to be running out of guests. So it's wonderful. But it's like, how does that all work out?
Yeah, so for anybody who doesn't know, the show is called the GMI Rocket Show. GMI stands for Global Mobility and Immigration. And the idea was to really have conversations with immigration and kind of broader global mobility tech founders and executives. When I first started, to your point, there were only, it felt like a handful, maybe let's say 20, 30 companies. I'm actually recording episode 129 this week. And the large majority of these folks have been immigration tech. I mean, there's been a few people, you've been a guest on my show, and a few others who are kind of innovative immigration lawyers that have done different things. Like you've done your immigration lawyers toolbox, and a few other folks have done interesting things. But mostly the guests have been tech founders. Honestly, if you go back a couple decades, number one, there are a lot of companies that have come and I don't want to say come and gone. A lot of them are still here, but INS Zoom started 25 years ago. LawLogic started 25 years ago. Visa Now, which became Envoy Global, started that long ago. And so there have been a lot of companies that have been around in the space. The acceleration of that has been crazy with AI. I mean, so many companies are branding themselves, right? They're basically AI tools that have large language models that they're using that are immigration specific, and so they can provide drafts of things or research or whatever, but really they're fundamentally maybe based on ChatGPT in the background or one of these tools. So it's been easier and easier to build tech companies over the years, and so that's why there are more of them. But I listen, I love it. I get to learn about these people's stories. It's not just about what their product does; it's also who is the founder or who are the founders behind this company. How did they come across this problem of immigration? I think that's important because if it's somebody who says, "Oh, I heard about immigration in the news, let me build a product for it," they're probably not going to last very long. But if it's somebody who actually cares about the immigration problem, I feel like you can trust them more to really care about the folks that they're serving.
Yeah, it's not a fly by night, just like, oh, I can milk this situation for what it's worth. And immigration, a lot of them are immigrants' backgrounds anyway. So they're more into it, or they've gotten O's in the past, so they dealt with the marriage green card
Mhm.
process, all that kind of stuff. Uh,
Exactly.
so I'm going to share my screen really quick. There was this post. As you know, I started getting back into LinkedIn hardcore because I took the TikTok app off my phone. And it's the only social media I have. So like, all I do is go on LinkedIn now. And I saw this one
Congratulations.
post. Thanks. From her name is Sundarya. What's her last name?
Mhm.
SB Balasubrani.
Mhm.
They have an event called. Let me make my screen bigger. Are you seeing it? Um,
Yep.
it's called the Open Atlas Summit, and on it they have Manifest Law. These are like partners or sponsors, I guess. Boundless
Yep.
Deal, which I think purchased one of the companies, and so it's under Deal, but it was someone
Yeah,
else
legal. They
other name we
purchased
know.
Legal Pad. Yep.
Legal Pad, that's it.
Yeah.
Bulcutter, Fakuri Global Immigration. I think they're a law firm. Alma,
Yep.
Pass Right, then
Yeah.
Lighthouse. Lighthouse. The thing about Lighthouse is I was listening to this podcast. I think I mentioned it in one, but they had an advertisement on this one geopolitic podcast. Listening to it, had like a million viewers. So essentially, they're doing O1 process and EB1As and stuff. I've set aside to actually talk about them separately, but there's chunks of these people, and they're probably doing volume at this point. That are getting in immigration space. Have you? How many of these have you like spoken with? Or are you familiar with? I mean, this was a law
I
firm,
mean,
but
almost all of them. So the Manifest Law team, I know, and they're great. So I hope to have them on the show. They're sort of an immigration law firm, really, at
oh,
their
okay.
core. But as far as I understand, they're based out of Arizona, and so they have this sort of tech, core with some
When you say based
venture
out of Arizona, is that
cap.
what gives them the? Do they have like non-lawyer partnerships? Is that why it's? You
Correct.
know that? Okay.
Exactly. That's my understanding, and so that's been really cool. Obviously, Boundless. I've had them on my show. Um, if you I've had Alma. I mean, FGI Fakuri Rami is a well-known immigration attorney, and his firm has been around for a long time. Alma and Lighthouse similarly have immigration platforms, so they're not actually law firms, as far as I know. The way that Manifest is, I believe they're more of like this technology layer, kind of like Boundless. Although Boundless is changing, and I think they are actually registered in Arizona now, or Utah. But Alma and Lighthouse have a tech platform and front end with lawyers in the background. Pass Right is Jacob Sapochnik, as you know, and he's an immigration lawyer, has a great firm, and um, is now the CEO of Pass Right. Deal, as I mentioned, they are a PEO. They're a global PEO, which means that they help companies hire folks remotely in different countries without having to like set up a entity there. So they handle the payroll and all that stuff. But they acquired LegalPad, who were also on my show, who were kind of a venture capital backed immigration tech startup. So looks like Buchhalter is from WR Immigration.
Oh,
So
interesting. Oh,
Wolfsdorf, Rosenthal. So it might be a tech product that they have. In any case, this is great. So yeah, I mean, this looks like a big event, and hopefully they're going to have hundreds of immigrants, and so, presumably these vendors and sponsors will be, vying for some business there where they can help them with everything from O1s to EB1s, EB2, and IWs using the various tech that they have.
yeah. I'll look into book culture in particular because that's a WR immigration. That's a Wolfster's
Oh
Rosenthal.
yeah,
Um, so I mean
interesting.
that when it comes to immigration lawyers, obviously there's like the initial response of like, oh, competitors coming to eat up our lunch and all this kind of stuff, which they probably are to a large part. They can do that. These are on the employment based section. They just have the ability to adjust business wise much better than immigration lawyers. And, there's just some less responsibility that they have in certain kinds of things because we have a bar license. But, uh, I always try to be open minded about it and say, listen, like there's a need for representation. And, I mean, most people don't have immigration lawyers. I have clients who do O1s on their own. So if they're getting some representation, at least it's better. Hopefully, just good representation or of some kind.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I just had a company on my podcast last week called Jumpstart Immigration, and they're also focused on O1s and EB1s and things like that, and they're doing amazingly well from a volume and revenue perspective. I just think that the pie is expanding. To your
Yeah.
point, there's so many companies, so many individuals rather, who are filing on their own. A portion of them go to immigration attorneys, but again, sometimes people don't want to. These are, especially if you're talking about O1, EB1, EB2, and IW individual, they're, by nature, they're skilled, they're smart, they're confident, and they think, this is paperwork, right? We may disagree as immigration attorneys, but they think it's paperwork. And you know what? Some of them are successful, right, with
Yeah.
it. And so I think the tech sort of explosion with startups that are focused on these kind of individuals makes sense because you're going and saying, look, if you're going to file for this on your own anyway, we can guide you through it with immigration lawyers in the back end, plus AI, plus this and that, for probably less than what an attorney might charge, probably, right? And so if you think about it, you're not, I mean, this is an argument. You're not taking business from an immigration attorney. You're just adding some level of representation to somebody who wouldn't have had representation to begin with. Now, that's, of course, not going to be always the case. There's certainly going to be people who start competing in terms of in terms of price, an attorney's fee, straight up traditional attorney versus one of these startups. So maybe in that case, you'll have folks who don't go with an attorney and go with one of these companies. But I'll tell you what, I've talked to attorneys where they've seen the opposite. They've had clients come in who've started with a tech company, and the tech company probably was doing a good job, but maybe some kind of technicality came up, and that tech company couldn't solve for it. And either they didn't move ahead with the filing, or they didn't get an RFE or something. And then they said, "All right, I need to talk to a human being, the
Yeah.
traditional way." And then they'd come to an attorney, and so the attorney actually got business from there. So maybe I'm just trying to be optimistic here, but I do think that they're sort of going for that 60 to 70% of folks who file for immigration benefits and go unrepresented. They're trying to eat into that rather than eat away, chop
I think
away at
so.
the piece of the pie that lawyers are currently getting. And by the way, last comment, a lot of these firms work with, if not all of them, they work with lawyers. I mean, sometimes officially, sort of on staff, but most often on a contract basis. And so what they do is they go to lawyers and say, look, we have raised venture capital money. We have this nice website. We've got this cool tech. We're going to invest in marketing. We're going to invest in Facebook ads, Instagram, et cetera, events like the one you just showed on screen where they're sponsoring. We're going to get the customers, but then we need you to do the fulfillment on the back end. So,
Mhm.
that lawyer is not going to get their full fee, but they also don't have to do really anything. Everything is delivered to them in a nice package. They look through it. They make changes, they make suggestions, etc. Maybe they sign a G28 and they're representing. Maybe they're not. But in any case, they're the business side of the practice for those who don't want to do it is taken care of by these tech companies. So in that sense, they're working alongside and very much respect immigration lawyers.
Yeah, a lot of my clients who would are the target clientele for these companies that hire me. A lot of times they just want to have a person that's a lawyer that they can talk with a lot or know the country conditions and unique stuff. Which when I share my screen right now for those watching on YouTube, I'll kind of talk about some of them. This is that Lighthouse HQ, and this is Lighthouse. And if you go to lighthousehq.com/pricing, they have their pricing there. And since it's not lawyers, we could talk about it, I guess, because lawyers are not supposed to talk about their pricing. They're I would say, like, it's not very competitive. Essentially, like, they're lawyer prices, but you're not getting a lawyer. For EB1A, B, or C is 15,000. EB1 2 INIW 15,000. Adjustment of status 1,500 is probably depends on your firm, maybe on the low side. But that needs a lot of hand holding sometimes, depending on the client. H1B 4.5, TN 3.5. So this is kind of lawyer prices, but you're not getting a lawyer. And so that's what it's in my interpretation, I would say it's like just get a lawyer if you're going to pay these kind of prices. But and they also have like plus for like people that have bulk stuff and they have special prices for that. But I thought it was interesting to have the pricing up there. It just gives you like a kind of a reference of what's going on in the marketplace.
I would check because they may have attorneys on the back end. I'd actually have to go back to the interview I had with their CEO.
They
If people want to
must,
learn about this
yeah,
company, but the question really is always whether there's a G28 being signed or if it's just like a, you know, done with you, right? Kind of program where
yeah,
you ultimately are filing on your own, but you have some assistance along the way. But in any case, I think the idea was just that there's so much volume
yeah.
for these, every year that that's the reason these companies are popping up. I mean, maybe some of them will end up kind of closing shop if volumes get too low. But I don't know. So far, it
There's
seems like they're all growing. And
there's
by the
no
way,
cap
it's not that there's no cap. Exactly, there's no
for
cap, and
O1s.
there's
It's yeah,
O1s, EB2 NIWs, and EB1s, and so by the way, it's not even that I'm seeing these companies pop up and then I'm hearing about lawyers who are suddenly losing business. The attorneys that I know who are working on, again, O1s, EB1s, EB2, and IWs are all flourishing,
yeah.
you know, or at least dabbling in these cases when they didn't previously, which means there's a plethora of demand.
And I kind of take it as a positive because they're doing advertising, but they're letting people know the O1, E2, EB1A option.
Yeah.
People don't even know these exist. So they're doing the marketing to let them know these visa categories exist. So then I've had clients who do marriage green cards, they mess up, and then they contact me. They're like, I didn't even know you could get a lawyer for this. So the knowledge of the population to even know that immigration law exists is a gap in the marketplace. And if they're doing the marketing for free for us that these visa options exist, and whatever, it helps us if anything.
That's a great way to think about it. Totally. Didn't even think about it that way, but yeah, exactly. Exactly. So yeah, that's one of the things, and that's a good it's a good segue from the podcast. Thinking about all the different AI companies that are being, um, that are popping up, and we'll see how long they all last. But so far, every company I've talked to, they, again, like you said, it's not a fly by night, kind of a situation. These are people who are raising money and investing a lot into their infrastructure, into their technology. They're always working alongside lawyers as they build their processes, and so my hope is that everyone at the very least is approaching this with good intentions. You
Mhm.
know, so yeah.
Well, speaking of these organizations, I mean, we were at the AILA conference in Colorado, in Denver. Was it June? It's been like a month and a half, 2 months. It's wow, okay. Time flies. But obviously, saw you there. You had a booth. I had a booth, and there are just a lot of AI companies or AI adjacent. Right next to your booth was a company that did emails with AI, which is interesting to kind of set that up. But one thing I found for me, from our perspective, is how many immigration lawyers or former immigration lawyers are doing secondary products. Nadine Heights has her product there. I have mine. We have AI systems with what's it called? Obviously, there's Visa Law AI. Greg Siskin. Thank you so much for listening. I'm going to jump in really quick in between and remind you about our E2 course. Did you trying to get into investor visas? This is the thing to do. No caps on these, and clients are really happy. You can start a business and all that kind of stuff. Teach you change of status, constant processing comes together. Go over the foreign affairs manual, where the basis of this stuff really comes from. It is a Department of State treaty kind of case. E2 is a treaty investor. And it's under 100,000. So these are small time people come in. You don't need a gazillion dollars. There are people on F1 student visas, OPT to start their own business. There's foreign people buy a small business, open up a shop in the US. We guide you how to do that. New business coming up, less than 100,000. It works, and we do it. And there's samples there. We hold your hand. So check it out. If you're already on our community page on circle.so, just click on the E2 link and you'll see the purchase portion there. If you're not already a member of our community page, email me with your bar info, your name, bar number, and bar state. Sometimes people don't send the state, and I'm like, how am I going to find this? I usually go on LinkedIn, try to find people. I usually find them there, but I like to just corroborate and make sure there's some inkling of you being in the private bar. before you come on in our private community. But we have hundreds of people there and look for hundreds of more. So definitely join us. Info at immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com. That's info at immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com. Let's get back to the show.
And
So,
James Hetzel too. He's got his law firm and has Prima Facie and also Bella Legal. I mean, there's a lot of lawyers that are kind of building service companies.
and so when we're talking about like these tech companies, instead of getting worried about them, it's kind of like, why don't you kind of jump on board? If you have the bandwidth to do it, find a niche area within your practice. And the AI does make it easier than ever. For example, we have affidavits we do for some marriage cases when they don't have a lot of evidence. And what we do is you have a questionnaire to fill out, then we'd manually go and like retype it out into an affidavit and then send it to them to sign. But I always want to do an automated online questionnaire that they put it here and it creates a Word document, but I couldn't figure it out and I had to hire somebody. But I asked ChatGPT how to do it and I figured it out in like half an hour sitting with ChatGPT. I did something that's going to save like at least a couple hours now, like per case of writing these affidavits. And when we'd write them out, we'd have typos on there and the clients would get annoyed, their family members get annoyed. But it's like, if there's typos, that's their stuff now. So it really cleaned things up. It just, if you have time, just talk with ChatGPT about a problem you have, find a solution and sell that as a product. It's doable.
Yeah, or even Lista, if you know that that company. It's not a technology product. It is. Do you know?
Yeah, I sat next to her on
Have
the
you
on
heard
the
of?
airplane coming back from Chicago
Yeah.
a year ago. She's here in Los Angeles. I always forget everybody's name, so I was at a podcast. I forgot your name. I'm like, who's my friend who like, oh, who's this guy
Cat-
name? But
Catherine Haight
yeah,
is her name. So Lista.io. I mean, it's kind of a tech product, but it's not an AI. But what Catherine did was she took her SOPs, right?
hmm
Her procedural documents basically, and she effectively open them up to her colleagues, right? And so you can buy, a list of steps that you need to take to file an H-1B, to do a green card adjustment, a marriage-based adjustment, to do this and that. And it's just, it's really good for young attorneys who just haven't built out the processes yet because they don't have enough experience. It's really good for an experienced attorney who left a big law firm and that law firm maybe provided all this documentation. And, they're not going to give it to you. You want to go off on your own. Best of luck to you. But we're keeping our proprietary information. She has this for sale. Genius. It's a great way to, use your expertise to provide a software or a service or product like this for the industry. And she's still, Catherine's still practicing. So yeah,
yeah.
I definitely agree with you.
And she's got a very strong firm and a big business firm, and that she's doing this. And I was interested. I was on a sitting on a plane next to her, which I recommend when you go to the AILA conference to get first class because you end up sitting next to some good lawyers there, and they have a really
There
good
you go.
pricing. Like it's like a third of the price for first class. I'm like, just take it and get there, relax and everything. But yeah, that was really good. Speaking of which, like I know you got there late because what a mess it was for people going to Colorado this year on the first day. You got hit with that
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, I got hit with that as well. Coming from New York, I think there was a hailstorm in like right by the airport. And so yeah, we were delayed. And I got to the airport around midnight. And then
Oof.
as I was checking in, they said, sorry, bud, canceled. Come back tomorrow. So, it is what it is. But luckily I got there that first full day. And the conference was a blast. And it was great to see you there too.
Definitely. What were your takeaways from? I mean, you and I spend most of the time in the exhibit hall. Did you have any particular takeaways from this conference?
Yeah, I mean, it was first of all the largest conference I believe ever in terms of in-person attendees.
Really?
I think there were 2,000 plus. I have to remember. I
Wow.
have to get the numbers again. Maybe it was 3,000. I can't remember, but it was a ton of people, and they had a relatively large percentage of folks who were first-time attendees.
Yeah.
So it means that the conference circuit is growing. At the very least, the AILA annual conference is growing, and I think that's great. I mean, listen, I'm on the member experience committee with AILA, and one of the jobs of that committee is to engage members, right, and make sure they have a good experience with AILA. And there are tons of resources, and there are practice pointers, and there's AILA 8, and all this stuff. But I think ultimately the best thing that keeps you engaged with your colleagues is just hanging out with them in
Yeah.
person. I mean, and so I am really happy to see more and more people attending these events and conferences. I think that that means they're fun. I mean, I think that means they're productive, and for sponsors like myself, and you had a booth. It helps us get in front of more human beings and sort of talk about the products or services or software we have to offer.
For sure. I noticed that too, that a lot of new faces, interestingly enough, less older, quote unquote, older faces. I think they're just busy running the practice. They usually, a lot of our old buddies would be there, but a lot of new people. And there's exciting, a lot of listeners coming in telling me they started their own firm, became immigration lawyers to listen to the podcast. That was really exciting to hear that. But one thing I did notice from talking with people, because where my booth was, next to it was this puppy rescue thing, and people would line up to be the
Yeah.
puppy. So I just pull people out of that line and say, "Oh, you're standing right here. Let's talk." And pretty much every time I talk with someone about removal defense, humanitarian, they would say, "Yeah, I'm trying to get out," because obviously it's a very stressful kind of job experience. And so that's a lot of the toolbox work, because I do other side, transactional kind of immigration law, USCIS. I'm always pushing people here. I have an EB1A course, E2 course, marriage green cards, constant processing. And I'm like, I kind of like, well, keep pushing, the lifestyle practice that I have where I work from home and just mail stuff to the government. But on the other end, like, we really need like support here to be able to handle these cases. And, talking with you just right now, I'm thinking it has to be AI and tech support that could take some of the burden off. Obviously, the stress of dealing with ICE and going to court is not going to go away. But to use systems to kind of collect data. I have a friend, we had interviewed him on Monday, Gianfranco, that just Gianfranco. My last name is too Italian for me to pronounce. But they have systems and AIs that are working to like do asylum consultations with the AI to just streamline it and to provide free consultations that way. And but that might be the way to solve the impact. Because managing an office, doing those kind of cases, and having to go in person, appear, and this and that, or talk to a judge, having them yell at you, all this stuff, it would need to relieve the stress in some other areas so people could do that, and then have more training and update courses because things change so dramatically there. That is kind of a tech angle too. Ayla had this the tech awards and stuff that I nominated myself. I contacted them and said, listen, I'm using basic tech to get my media company out there. Used to be you had to have be a $1 billion company to be able to do media, but I have my own one person media company with all these basic technology. So I think that's an interesting thing you should promote. But I didn't win. I just got an email saying thank you, but no thank you. but yeah, it's like, how do we solve this access to justice kind of situation? And it's hard to add people because it just gets more expensive and people are stressed out. It's got to be a tech solution to it.
Well, to that point, there were a number of booths and services that were like staff augmentation companies.
Yeah.
So, paralegal services that said, we've got experienced paralegals. We can help you on a case by case basis or, part time basis. You don't need to hire full time staff. I do think that a lot of, especially with something like asylum or other humanitarian cases, I can imagine a lot of attorneys saying, I don't trust it yet, or whatever, right? This is more sensitive than a cut and paste H1B or L1 or something. And so what I loved about the different vendors this year was that, yes, there were tons of AI products, which can streamline at least some of the stuff, maybe intake of information, maybe parsing of documents, maybe automated drafting. But then there were also paralegal services where you want maybe a human touch, right? To
Hmm.
review something, to talk to the client, etc. So you can, as a solo or a very small firm, use these different tools, which are going to be much more cost effective than hiring, additional full time staff, but can help you either scale if you want to, or take over some of your work. Because I suspect a lot of people are not necessarily taking on more work; they're just busier with the work that they already have
Hmm.
because of all the questions, the stress, the detentions, the etc. And so you can at least take off some of that load and de-stress a little bit or whatever. I mean, listen, we're lawyers are people too. There's like a national, I think there's a national hug a lawyer day or like hug your,
Yeah, I think
maybe there's
so.
even a hug your immigration lawyer day. And we can't forget to take care of ourselves, which I think is really important. So yeah, I think to your point, using tech or sometimes using these other companies just to make things easier is really important.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the paralegal aspect, the support, because that was after AI. That was the second biggest thing I noticed is how many paralegal companies are happening, and other companies that were formerly do other stuff like business plan writers or translation services. They already have people internationally that were educated and well written, well spoken. They just added this component onto it, and so that's probably the second most competitive, maybe even the first most competitive part of the businesses that were there. Case manager is probably the biggest because they spend so much money. But just the amount of paralegal providers that hire international firms, or some even domestic, that provides support. And we had a couple people that are just paralegals there, got booths, which are very interesting. I interviewed them as well. Nice people. But that seems like, it's get the lawyer out of it, at the tech or the paralegal, but just kind of diffuse the pressure on the lawyer who's handling too much.
Yeah, so that was a big takeaway. I think the last thing I would say, which for me was a big takeaway from the conference, is I think Ayla's trying to have a little bit more fun nowadays. I mean, look, I've been in Ayla. I was on a committee meeting earlier today. I've been a member since 2012, but there are folks that I was on a committee with that have been members since the 80s and 90s, and I remember seeing in Facebook groups, people, especially younger attorneys, saying like, why do I need Ayla? It's like it's old school, it's stuffy, or whatever. I mean, people have their opinions, but I do think that Ayla is trying to be more fun and more social with kind of the get-togethers, and um, yeah, I had a lot of fun. I mean, to me, again, that's always just a really big thing with the Ayla annual conference. It's just a lot of fun, and thank you for I had my comedy show. Thank you for promoting that, and I'll be doing it again next year in San Diego. Hope you'll be there, and your
Definitely.
listeners too.
Ideally, it's just too expensive to do, and for them, it's too hard to do. But like, if there was two annual conferences, it gives you the energy to go back into it because it's so much fun when you go there and you get, even if you're a person that's not outgoing, you go there, you'll meet a couple of friends, you'll get some information that's going to change your cases, and just being around people who are doing the same thing you do and are interested in it. Because a lot of people aren't interested in these details. You talk with your family and friends, they're like, okay, I-130,
Right.
what's this? But they're excited about I-140s. It's like a weird group. So it's definitely something to go to. I got to say, their parties at the end were used to be bigger bashes. I'm not sure if there's the costing or what, and the food was usually off the hook. I remember, did you go to New Orleans? The party in New Orleans?
Yeah.
I think they
Yeah,
have
that
two
was
in New
fun.
Orleans. I went to
No, I didn't. Sorry. I'm thinking yeah, no, I didn't go to New Orleans. So.
that was they had a party like in New Orleans, street party that they rented or bought, and so we just walked from the conference was there, just a huge beads, and then that was at this House of Blues kind of thing, or BB Kings or something like that. 3 stories of barbecue ribs and food. I was like, I was over the top. And this time it was like, I don't know, like chili was good, I guess. I'm like, I wanted some food. This is chili.
Yeah.
So, but it was
Yeah,
cool.
that's fair. I mean, sometimes the venue also is restrictive, but good feedback. I'll bring it back to the committee
I'm trying to
for what
complain
it's
less.
worth.
I'm always my wife says you complain too much. I'm like I'm trying to hold back my tongue and no lashon as they say. But I like the food's got to be great. It was still good, but I was excited the last day, the Saturday party. They had one in San Francisco where they rented out Giants. Okay, the Giants. They rented out Giants
Yeah, yeah,
Stadium and the whole thing. I couldn't believe it when they took us there. I was like, dude, you have the whole baseball stadium go on the grass. So it probably cost them a lot of money to do something like that. But that's the kind of stuff that's like you set the standards really high. Chicago was cool too. That
yeah.
museum was really nice. I enjoyed that one actually.
Yeah, that was a great party. That was a really, really fun, beautiful venue. And it was cool. You were drinking and dancing with people, and you had exhibits around you that you could check
Mhm.
out. I mean, it was really, really fun. Yeah. So yeah, it depends. I think it depends on the venue. It depends on how many people are going. But I to your point, I mean, we can always give feedback and sort of criticize, but I think overall, I haven't left an annual conference and thought, wow, that was a complete waste of my time.
Yeah, it is.
It's always been if anything, I've always wish I had maybe one extra day to sort of
Yeah.
meet with more people or talk to more folks. But it
I've
also
had it
depends on
several
how
times
much
where,
you.
yeah, sorry, but jump in, but they're on the fence and they came. They're like, I don't know. By the end of it, they're like, dude, I can't believe I haven't come to these sooner. I've like repeatedly
Yeah,
had that, so it's like
yeah,
totally worth the
yeah,
investment. It's like I can't say enough about how great the national one is. I don't go too much to the regional, local ones, probably should, but the national is always like a great time. It's like you have to go if you can't if you could get away with it.
yeah. Agreed, agreed. You get all your CLEs in one
For
weekend.
sure. So, Roman, if you want to reach out to you, I mean, you have LaborLess, you have GMI Rocket, the podcast, and the program for helping people with marketing and LinkedIn, all this kind of stuff. You got a lot of business cards. What's the best one that people could reach you at and ask you stuff about or get connect with you?
Yeah, I mean, if anybody wants to chat with me about anything from LinkedIn for your immigration practice to technology to some business strategy to signing up for my tennis retreat that I'm doing in a couple of weeks, immigration tennis retreat, just LinkedIn, Roman Zelichenko, find me. I'm always on there. I respond to messages right away, and that's where I share a lot of information. So I think that's the best place.
Wonderful. Thank you, Roman, for coming on. Hopefully, this will become a monthly thing. We'd love it to just chat what's going on in our side of the world in this field. But I appreciate you once again for coming on.
Of course. Thanks, John. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening. Roman is such a great guest. A lot of knowledge there, and just the tip of the iceberg of what we're going to get into these kind of things. It just I love talking about immigration law and this different aspect of it. Now we mentioned a lot of names of people and companies and stuff, so you got to be sensitive so we don't hurt anyone's feelings. So I got to be cautious of what I say and all that kind of stuff. That's one of the things when I started this podcast. It originally was just going to be partially like when I was interviewing people, conversations we have offline. But as soon as the camera comes on, you got to be cautious and cuts down a lot of the extra fun stuff that we talk about. That's what makes it so fun when we go to the conference, just you and me, and we're talking and we get to be more open as opposed to this public kind of place where we have consequences for the things we say. But that's the thing about speech. You got to be very careful what you say, putting aside any legal stuff, slander, all that kind of stuff, just for hurting people's feelings and caring for other people and not creating problems we don't need to, and just adding to negativity in the world. So yeah, being a person who talks all day, both in my practice on these things, I got to be very cautious about stuff, and I'll think about it more and more. Something I constantly consider, and hopefully you do too, to help better yourself, better your family, friends, and better the world. So I'll leave you with that. So I hope you see you all next show. Bye bye. If you like this episode, follow us on Instagram. Our handle is Immigration Lawyers Toolbox, where we post the latest statistics, tips, and more. And stay tuned for more from the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox podcast.